All right, let's crack open a truly chilling cold case file from the 1970s. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're putting on our paranormal investigator hats. We're going to look way past the Hollywood adaptations, the blockbusters we've all seen in the Conjuring universe, and we're going to examine the raw, factual reports of a true event. We're looking at the case of the Black Monk of Pontefract, which is an investigation into a very ordinary-looking home in England that literally concealed an extraordinary nightmare right inside its walls.
So if ghosts aren't real, who exactly is knocking from inside the walls? Let's dive right into this terrifying mystery and examine the hard evidence. For those of you who are skeptical out there who firmly believe there's absolutely no place for the paranormal in our modern world, well, this case file presents a really fascinating challenge. Because if it wasn't a supernatural entity terrorizing this family, we have to ask ourselves, who or what was causing the walls of 30 East Drive to come alive? Let's look at the facts. Section 1, the 30 East Drive case. Imagine this. Joe, Jean, and their young, curious daughter Diane think they've just scored their spacious dream home in a completely quiet, normal neighborhood. They unpack their boxes, they say hello to their friendly new neighbors, and they're just anticipating a peaceful life. They had absolutely no idea that their property was essentially sitting on cursed ground, and that their new dream home was destined to become a living nightmare. Section 2, escalating paranormal phenomena. Now, as an investigator, I'm always hunting for patterns. And in the Pritchard case, the timeline reveals how this entity really tested the family's psychological boundaries before escalating things. So on night 1, young Diane hears 2 distinct knocks coming right from the wall. Her mother, Jean, brushes it off as the wind. But the very next night, Joe goes upstairs to investigate those sounds. He finds nothing. But the moment he turns his back, the knocking starts up directly behind him. Within a few days, these knocks evolved into the undeniable sound of phantom footsteps just racing up and down the stairs, even when the house was completely empty. Then the psychological games leveled up into aggressive visual manifestations. Diane started feeling like she was constantly being watched. Doors just began slamming shut all on their own. The real breaking point, though, happened when Diane, who was already terrified of sleeping alone, went up to her room just to grab her homework. Right behind her, the key in her wardrobe slowly turned on its own. When she looked up, she saw a towering shadow figure draped in a black robe and a dark hood. The sight was so paralyzing, she literally fainted right there on the bedroom floor. Diane actually said, "I can't sleep tonight, otherwise it will kill me." You guys, the crucial point here is that this wasn't just a harmless bump in the night. It was perceived by the family as a lethal threat. When Diane's parents found her unconscious and finally revived her, she woke up in absolute hysterics, delivering that terrifying warning. And around this exact same time, Jean herself actually witnessed that shadowy figure seemingly dragging a phantom child. The family was under total siege. Section 3. Profiling the poltergeist. The family quickly realized they were way out of their depth here, so they brought in outside help. Investigators arrived on the scene and immediately classified the haunting as a poltergeist, which is an incredibly powerful entity capable of immense, real-world destruction. They shut down the neighborhood rumors and focused purely on the physical evidence. And most alarmingly, they noted its incredibly dangerous parasitic attachment specifically to the teenage daughter, Diane. So what did the evidence-gathering phase actually yield? Well, it was terrifying. The investigators set up audio recorders and cameras all throughout 30 East Drive. They successfully documented violent, deafening bangs just echoing through the halls. One camera even managed to capture a chair moving completely on its own. And the physical toll on their primary target, Diane, was severe. She was suffering from chronic weakness and these horrific nightmares, completely confirming the investigators' profile of a targeted, destructive attachment. Section 4. History of the Black Monk. Okay, to really figure out the entity's behavioral profile, we have to dig centuries into the past. Local neighbors finally opened up and shared a pretty grim piece of historical context. Centuries ago, way before 30 East Drive was even built, an ancient ashram stood right on this exact spot. A monk living there committed some unspeakable crimes, and as punishment, the rest of the monastic community deprived him of food and water, just leaving him to suffer a slow, absolutely agonizing death by starvation. His vengeful spirit became inextricably bound to the very land where he died. This dark history gives us a pretty chilling motive, doesn't it? The sheer, intense suffering of his execution bound his spirit to the area, fueling this lingering rage against anyone who dared to step foot in his former domain. And remember that dark hooded figure Diane saw? It perfectly matched the historical descriptions of this guy, earning him the terrifying moniker, the Black Monk. Section 5. The Clerical Intervention. All right, so with the ancient threat finally identified, the family decided they had to take drastic action to cleanse the house. They called in a priest to perform prayers and essentially exorcise the property. But as the priest's prayers intensified, the house reacted violently. The temperature in the room instantly dropped to freezing. The air suddenly filled with these chaotic, deafening noises and screams, which provided terrifying physical confirmation of the entity's immense power and its absolute refusal to leave.
And then came the absolute climax of the intervention. During all the chaos of the prayers, Diane suddenly opened her eyes, but it wasn't her voice that came out. In this deep, totally unrecognizable, and frankly, terrifying tone, she delivered a chilling message. He belongs here. And immediately after those words were spoken, the entire room just fell completely dead silent.
Section 6. The Case Legacy. Let's wrap up our dossier review by looking at the immediate aftermath of that terrifying intervention and the enduring legacy of 30 East Drive. The prayers didn't banish the Black Monk. Instead, they seemed to force a sort of grim acceptance from the entity. The extreme violence and the flying objects did stop, but he never truly left. A permanent, terrifying coldness remained in the walls, along with the occasional phantom footsteps on the stairs. The house was calm, sure, but it was occupied. Eventually, the psychological weight of it all became just way too much, and the Pritchett family moved away. Years later, during an interview, Dan gave this incredibly haunting reflection. The attacks weren't the scariest part. It was the feeling that someone is watching you all the time. It's a stark reminder for us as investigators that the psychological terror of an entity's attachment, that constant heavy paranoia of sharing your home with an unseen predator, far outlasts any physical attack.
Today, 30 East Drive actually still stands, fiercely maintaining its haunted reputation, and visitors still report strange knocks and shadowy figures. So as we close up this case file, I'm passing the gavel over to you to act as the final jury. Were the terrifying events of the 1970s simply the result of severe psychological stress and an overactive imagination? Or does the ancient, vengeful spirit of the Black Monk truly still walk those halls? Thanks for joining me on this investigation. Stay curious out there, and remember, not every knock on the wall needs to be answered.